Hi, it's great to see you all. It's true. I've been lucky enough to be invited to this event for many years, but I was always traveling the weekend that this happens. My I don't know if you know this. I am so happy to be here. It's very rare that I get to speak for 10 minutes without stopping and giving it to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. I'm just going to keep going and going and going. There's no traffic breaks. This is fantastic. Um, I moved here about 14 years ago, and at the time I still have four children, but at the time I had four children. They were the ages 5 to 12. Very difficult thing to do. We made a decision as a family that they would stay with their mother in Southern California. I would move here, and I would go back to California at least every 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of you don't know that, but I would get off the air on Friday morning. I'd head to the airport. I'd fly to LA, spend Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then fly right back Sunday morning so I could be here Monday. But it was important for me to be involved in their lives and help raise them. And actually, right up until that point, that year that I moved here, we were homeschooling our kids. I want to tell you about my kids real fast because, well, this is about our kids, all of our kids, because I feel like I represent the success story of school choice. My oldest child, again, homeschooled all four of our children up until the point that my oldest child was in eighth grade. Then our oldest three went to a parochial Catholic school. After eighth grade, my oldest child went to a charter school in Los Angeles County for the performing arts because she loved the theater. She then went to UCLA, got a theater major. She's now at Yale Drama School for her master's degree. All right? I know it wasn't my choice, Yale, but we'll work that out. Graduate school's different up there. My second child ended up going to high school at an all-girls Catholic school in Southern California, got accepted to the Naval Academy. She then graduated, went to the one-year nuclear power program in Charleston, so she's like 6 credits away from being a nuclear engineer. She was an officer on a submarine. She married her classmate from the Naval Academy, who's now an artillery officer in the Marine Corps, and they're expecting my first grandchild. It's a cheap way to get applause. My son, my third child, just went to a good old-fashioned, after homeschooling, in third grade, he ended up just going to a good old-fashioned vanilla public school system, graduated as the valedictorian of his high school, and he's now in his third year at UC San Diego. He'd love to be a computer science major, but he was told that because he's half white, half Chinese American, he's not allowed to be but they didn't have room for him in the program. If only he had come from China. I'm completely serious. They said we have slots still, but only for actually Chinese-born imported Chinese students, because that's Gavin Newsom's California now. And then our youngest child, who is on the autism spectrum because of his special needs, we had him in the public school for 1 year, realized exactly what the state of California special needs program was like, pulled him right back out, and we homeschooled right up through his graduation from high school last year. So that's quite a sampling, isn't it? From parochial schools to charter performing arts schools to basic public schools to homeschooling, all four of my kids. And the reason I say that in terms of the microcosm of my family and my children is that, believe it or not, every child is different. Every single child is created out of God's eye to be their own individual person. These four kids had the exact same parents, had the exact same faith, had the exact same method of learning how to potty train and read, and yet they all ended up going in uniquely different positions. That's why we need school choice, because right now, the people who are in charge of education in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, use a cookie-cutter approach for all of our children, and that cookie doesn't taste very good, let's face it. I loved our panelist here who said, I went to Fairfax High School before it sucked. Paraphrasing. But, if we were in Maryland today, they'd say, oh, yeah, I went to Bethesda Chevy Chase before it sucked. If we were in D.C., they'd say, oh, yeah, I went to Woodrow Wilson before it sucked. It's amazing how all these great institutions over the course of the last 15 or 20 years now suddenly suck. And I guess we know what they mean when they say equity, because that's what equity looks like. I know they sell you on the idea of it's going to lift everybody up and everyone will have achievement and everyone will be, no. Equity works the other direction too. And frankly, that's a lot easier, isn't it? Whenever we decry DEI programs, I think we're always accused of in some way opposing diversity. We don't oppose diversity. Diversity is fabulous. Look at this room. Look around you right now. We love diversity. The problem is the equity part. The problem is when they drag down standards, when they drag down excellence, they don't even try to achieve excellence, because if certain students excel, well, where's the equity in that? And that's what we're living through right now. So how did we get here, and how do we promote school choice so that we can actually fix the problem and change that E in DEI from equity to excellence? Well, the reason we got here is because of political power. Make no mistake. I would love for our education system in America not to be a political issue. Good luck. As long as the government is paying for it, and as long as people can get elected into office with money from very, very rich interests in our education systems, it's going to be political. So let's not kid ourselves, and let's not try to not be political about the education of our children, because it is. But the good thing about politics is you can win, and you can defeat your political opponents. I just saw a poll, Harvard-Harris poll, and the question was very simple. Do you think teachers' unions should be involved in politics, or do you want teachers' unions to not be involved in politics? Do you know what the number was? I know you know what the majority of Americans said, right? They do not want the teachers' unions involved in politics. It was an astounding 60%. We can't get 60% of Americans right now to agree that chocolate ice cream is pretty damn yummy, right? I keep hearing how divided our country is and how we can't come together. How about that? How about 60% of Americans want teachers' unions to not be political? Do you think the teachers' unions will follow that advice? Absolutely not. Why not? Well, because right now the politicians who gain power because of those teachers' unions, they don't see any negative ramifications from their association with that group. You know, there was a time in my lifetime where members of Congress, members of the state legislature down in Richmond, they would proudly say, "You betcha I take money from the tobacco companies. What's wrong with that?" Do you see that anymore from any politicians? Again, this isn't a knock on tobacco companies, but something happened where the American people associated that political money and that political influence with something quite negative in our lives. As far as I'm concerned, the cancer that is caused by cigarettes is not nearly as damaging as the cancer that the teachers' unions and big money that continue these programs that are harming our children. You ask yourselves, would you rather find out when your kid comes home from school that they had cigarettes behind the gym, or that they learned that they could be the other gender? You answer that question, and then you know exactly what we need to do. We need associations with that kind of political money to be just as toxic as tobacco money was. And how do we do that? Well, this is how we start, and this is how we continue. We need to continue to not only elevate and recognize the excellence that can be had out there with alternative educational options, but we need to publicly shame the people that continue to hang on to the failed programs of the past. They can't look at excellence. They can't say, hey, everything's great now. So what they do is just take the money and pretend that you're not paying attention. And we voters, we moms, we dads, you know, after the pandemic, we had a choice. We could either really get involved and get in the face of all of these people who have ruined the schools for our kids and make that difference, or we could just make sure that our kids are taken care of and let everything else go to hell. We tried the former, I think, for a little while. I can tell you at my radio station, you know, you're either a local radio host or you're a national radio host, right? And when you're a national radio host, you focus on, you know, the same thing that you see on Fox News every night, I suppose, all the big national issues. I'm a local radio host in a really big market that gets a lot of attention. And we made a concerted effort and a very conscious choice that if we're going to be local, we're going to be local. I probably spent more time on school board issues and school board elections as I have on congressional elections. Frankly, as I always like to say, What happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. I think we saw during the COVID pandemic that your local school board member has more of an impact every single day on your life and on your children's life than who sits behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And yet, how much time do we spend in the media and in our politics and even on our own Facebook pages talking about the president instead of about who's on the school board? See, that's on us. And we need to raise those issues up, and we need to try to make a difference. And here's the funny thing. Little local radio show that starts talking about school board issues, suddenly that becomes a national issue. There's only a few counties in America that everyone has heard of and knows about. Loudoun and Fairfax are two of them. Nationwide, in fact, internationally, for all the wrong reasons. But we've elevated those stories because they're a microcosm of every single county in this country. You're not alone. We are not alone. It's going on everywhere, and we just need to reach critical mass. And I'll say one more thing before we're done. There are a lot of voters out there and a lot of people in Virginia that I speak with, either like this or on the radio. And they'll say, listen, my kids are out of school. It's not my problem anymore. Or I homeschool my kids. It's not my problem anymore. Or my kids go to a private school. It's not my problem anymore. Well, I just told you my educational journey with my kids. All right. So whatever option you fall in line with, that's why school choice is important, because the politicians in Richmond, they're so arrogant. The politicians in whatever county you're in Northern Virginia, they're so arrogant that they think, you know what? When the voters don't like the school system, they'll just take care of it themselves. They'll pull their kids out. They'll homeschool. They'll put their kids in private school. So, we don't have to worry about it. But of course, you're still paying for those schools. And they know that. And so they don't care to fix the problem for you. Let me just say, if you've homeschooled your child, if you put your kids in private school, or if you don't have kids in the school system anymore, the kids that are in those schools right now, well, number one, they're going to influence your kids because they're still going to see them on the block, on the streets, in clubs, on teams, etc. So don't think that how you're raising your kid is not affected by the choices that other parents and other teachers are making, because they are. Number two, those kids that come out of our public schools, well, they're voting. And your politicians know that. It's why, cynically speaking, you could look at the entire system that's been set up, and you would think that those people that are in power want kids that come out of the public schools to just be dumb and angry at America, because that's what they're doing. And then how do those people generally vote? And then number three, those kids that are coming out of the public schools are also the kids that you'll be hiring for your businesses, or that will be working behind the counter when you're standing in line trying to get a coffee or trying to buy something at Target. And you know what? Quality of life wise, I want those kids to be better than what's coming out of our school system right now, don't you? And so it matters, and it's your responsibility. It's our responsibility. In fact, if your kids are no longer in the system, frankly, that means that it's even more incumbent on you to give other kids the choice and the opportunity that your kids had. And that's the other arrogant thing that these politicians all know for a fact in their hearts, that as far as they're concerned, those people that can take their kids out of the system and are blessed like I was to be able to make those choices, well, that's fine for them, but let's keep everybody else down. That's what school choice is all about. And the only argument they've got back to you is, well, that's going to make all of the public schools poor because you'll pull all the money out of it, which is an admission of their own failure. Because they know the second that there's competition for those tax dollars, they will lose that competition. And you show me one product and one service in this country that has ever gotten better without competition. And on that, I will answer your questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'll just move on. Because we're moving on. All right. I will answer your questions later if you have any for me, but Stephen has given me the hook. Okay, now time for the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Good night, everybody. Thank you.